AITAH for not offering to pay for my husband and his kids, leading him to spend all his savings? The author of the post is listed in the description. For a while now, my husband John has been getting more and more angry over little things and generally moody and distant. I had finally had enough and approached him about separation. This conversation led to a big blowout and him revealing the state of his finances. My husband and I have always kept our finances separate. Also, although we call each other husband and wife and had a wedding, we are not actually legally married. This was primarily for inheritance purposes because we each have older children from previous relationships. Anyway, John revealed that he had basically no savings left, that all the money he had saved for retirement and for his kids' schooling was gone. Furthermore, he said it was all my fault since he used all his savings up to try and keep up with my lifestyle. There was never anything crazy in terms of bills or anything like that, and we always split it all equally. The house we live in I own outright as well, so there wasn't a mortgage payment. However, I have always liked to travel a lot on fairly extravagant vacations. I would invite John or John and his children to join on trips, but never made them feel like they had to come. That said, he was expected to pay for himself and for his kids. Except for recently, he accepted every invitation. I would also give my kids things he considered extravagant, but I considered normal. So he felt like he had to give similar things to his own kids. John said with all the spending to keep up his savings dwindled very fast. I expressed that I couldn't understand how or why he would spend all he had when he knew he couldn't afford it. He said it was like keeping up with the Joneses, only worse because it was at home, so he couldn't block it out. John thinks since I knew his job, I should have had a basic understanding of his finances and realizes this wasn't a lifestyle he could maintain. That the kind thing would have been to offer to pay for the trips and other things instead of dangle them in front of his and his kids' faces. Looking back, I probably could have realized that this spending didn't make sense for his salary, but I wasn't thinking about it. I don't think it was my responsibility to keep his finances in mind here. We had agreed from the beginning to keep our finances separate, so to me, that means paying for things separately. Edit. We do not live in a state with common law marriage. Relevant comments before update. Why not get married? You know you can make children beneficiaries in wills, right? Here, spouses are included in inheritance even if they're omitted from wills, and I plan on leaving everything to my kids. Ages. I'm 44. He's 53. We don't have any children together. So you didn't discuss trips you could afford together? We did discuss the trips, and I asked for input about where to stay, what we would do, but he never gave any or had any suggestions. I always assumed he just didn't like planning things. I would have likely still gone on the trips if he didn't want to. So if he said no, would you just go on the trip on your own? I would have likely still won the trip. That said, I would have been open to less expensive trips had he brought it up. Except for the past 2 trips, he never declined. I didn't go alone, though. I went on one with some friends and the other with my daughter. This comment exchange. Commenter, ESH. John should have ended your marriage way earlier. He can't keep with your lifestyle and would horrible and very unfair to subject his children in a life where half of the family goes on fancy vacations regularly and the others stay home. He should have been honest way earlier before his savings drained and ended the marriage. You should have more awareness of your partner's struggled. How do you share a life with someone and don't realize these things? Oop. He paid for things without any hint that he was struggling. I assume his attitude change was when things started to get really bad, and I did ask what was wrong, but he would just say things were fine or say he was upset about some little thing like the dishes not being put away. Before you were together, how often were you taking trips with your kids? I've always done about the same amount of trips every year, usually 2 with my kids. His kids mostly live with their mom, and mine will split time between me and their dad pretty equally. My eldest is in college now, though. And this exchange, commenter. I have a burning question. Did you ever ask him why he was acting that way before you decided it was time for separation? Because from the outside, you come off as the female stereotype that men don't have emotions, so there's no need to check. Whoop, I did. He would always say it was fine, or I would ask what's wrong, and he would get mad about the dishes not being put away or some other little thing. If you enjoy having him with you, maybe you could pay for him to go? If things were better, I might consider it, but at this point, I'm really not enjoying being around him anymore. I'm going to use this break to take some time to reevaluate things. It sounds like you don't love him at all. Why were you with him? Were you really together or just roommates with benefits? Why wouldn't you leave him anything in the will? How do you split daily life? With how things are now, it's hard to talk in present tense. I loved him. For me, it just feels like it would be wrong for my money and assets to go to anyone other than my kids given. For him, well, I don't really need any inheritance, so it just makes the most sense for it to have gone to his children. For restaurants, we've always just taken turns paying. Update. After reading all the comments on my first post, I realized I needed more time to think about things. I also thought with the situation how it would be best that we spend the holidays apart to avoid any controversy. He wasn't a fan of the idea, but I eventually got him to agree to go. Last week things settled down, so we met up to have a more detailed discussion about the state of his finances. A few more things were revealed. I found out that he had lost his job earlier this year and didn't tell me. He got a new job in October, but he went over 4 months without one while pretending he still had one. During that time, he only got a small amount of money from unemployment, so he started putting everything on his credit cards. His new job doesn't pay as much as his old one, so he hasn't been able to pay more than the minimum towards his debts, which are now substantial. I feel like if he had just brought up all these issues earlier, this could have been avoided, or we could have worked something out. Now I really just feel like I can't trust him. I can't trust him with money, and I can't trust him not to hide things from me. I just can't see going back and trying to make things work him at this point. Since he doesn't have a place to take all their things, I've agreed to store their stuff in my garage until he gets more settled. Which means I won't be able to make as clean of a break as I would like right now. But for the most part, it's over. New update. I liked the suggestion I was given when last posted of paying for a storage unit for their things for a few months. My ex, however, did not agree to it. He said it would make things too difficult because the closest storage location was too far out of the way. It definitely felt like he was still trying to cling to things, since I couldn't get a storage unit in his name without his approval. I talked to a friend who is a lawyer about the situation. He helped me write up a notice that told him that he had 30 days notice to get their things or they will be disposed of. After 30 days notice was up, he still had only picked up a few things. I ended up calling his ex and asked her if she or their kids wanted anything before I got rid of it all. Well, they had been left in the complete dark about our relationship being over. My ex had been lying to them, saying I was sick, and then he was sick with COVID. And that's why they hadn't been able to come over. I was not at all surprised at this point. I figured she didn't know about the rest of it either and told her. She is livid, especially about the money for their kids' education since it was part of their divorce agreement. Anyway, the kids all got what they wanted, and I had a charity come and pick up the rest. It feels a lot better now that there is a completely clean break. Yes, I have gotten the locks changed and blocked his number. Since there is no reason for me to have contact with him anymore, this is probably the last time I'll be posting. I think I'm there future. I will probably look for more transparency when it comes to financials in any serious future relationships. With how much he was lying, I can only imagine what else he may have been lying about. Had I known more, I don't think he would have been able to hide things. I am just so grateful and relieved that I was able to protect myself and my children. Relevant comments. One more time because people need clarification on inheritance. Where I live, spouses are included in inheritance even if there's a will. How could you not know what he was making if you know what he did for work? I just never looked into what the average salary for his type of work. This exchange clearing things up. User. First post said you both have adult kids. Why are their education an issue still, and why doesn't anyone contact you directly? Was no one on friendly terms? I don't know where you got that. My eldest is an adult, but the others are still under 18. I don't know who you mean by why doesn't any contact me directly. User. What I mean is they were told you were sick. These are people that went trips with and none of them texted or called to check on you? I don't know what to say. It doesn't seem odd to me. We didn't usually keep in contact when they were with their mom. Okay, next story. I think my husband's mistress thinks he is richer than he actually is. My best friend thinks I am a douche because I am keeping silent. We have been together for 14 years, living together for 11. He came and told me that he was in love about 3 weeks ago. I was surprised at the lack of fucks I had to give at receiving such information. I did love him, but maybe my love has always been conditional. and its survival depends on it being reciprocated because it literally vanished the second he confessed to me that he was in love with another woman. He didn't want a separation, but to maybe open the relationship or let his feelings for her subside. I said it was over. It was like I never had feelings for him ever. He was taken aback by my indifference, which I thought, the audacity. Did he want me to be hurt and suffer? I told him that he should be relieved that he didn't cause pain. Instead, he has been sulking since. Last Friday I got home and Mistress was there, sitting in my kitchen sipping my tea. I felt nauseous because seriously, I told them that this wasn't civil at all and to never be in my home again, or I would call the cops. I went to my room and I heard her yelling at him for not standing up for her. Then I heard her say something very curious. Why haven't you kicked her out yet? He was trying to tell her to lower her voice, whispering, later. We can discuss this later. She left and he came to me apologizing. He said, we didn't have sex here if this is what you're scared of. She just dropped by because I was working from home today. I told him that he had until the end of March to move out and to find somewhere to be during the weekends. This morning I changed all the locks. From now on, he isn't allowed in my place during my working hours, so if he starts later or finishes earlier, he needs to wait for me to come home and let him in. But his mistress's words stuck with me, so during the weekend I have been stalking her social media. I think she thinks that he is rich, or at least that he owns my apartment. I think she also thinks that my parents' summer house and boat are his. Unfortunately, the loser has taken her there, probably bragging about his wealth because her hashtags were all about the good life. I was telling my best friend all of this, but she was more agitated than indignant on my behalf. She told me that he was a scum not telling Mistress the truth. I agreed. IKR? But then she said I was no better not explaining to her his situation either. I was dumbfounded, but she was serious. I told her that it wasn't my job to bring back Mistress to Earth. My best friend got very angry and demanded that I gave her Mistress's username so that she could warn her. No, I said. She called me. A bigger douche than he is then. I don't know what's going on with these people. Have they gone mad or have I? When did our moral compass go askew like this? Can someone tell me that I am not insane? Relevant comments before update. Commenter. Your husband is twisted. He told you in the first place, so to light a fire under your toes to make you fight for him or something. Rekindle your passion or something. He's not being discreet to get a reaction from you. And since that fell through, it'll be great when he's not living at the places the mistress came around to scope out. Your friend? Give her a couple more feet of space because she's not looking out for you, Aran. Answer. I truly think the cheating was taking a toll on him, so he told me he wanted to open the relationship. He didn't admit at first that he already cheated. I don't know what to rekindle. We have had a very passionate and, at least on my part, loving relationship with lots of sex. But I can't make him love me or not fall for someone else. He is very sad now and crying all the time. I have never seen him cry before. It is awful because I feel guilty, but at the same time I don't feel guilty. I told him to seek mental help. Maybe he needs to sort out his feelings, but far away from me. Shouldn't he be over the moon now? Being newly in love? I remember nothing would make me cry when I was newly in love with him. Nothing could go wrong. Now he is sullen and morose all the time. Commenter. Nope, not wrong. Get rid of him and wash your hands. Your bestie sounds delusional. Answer. Phew, because I thought something was wrong with me when she got upset. Commenter. You should question why your friend wants to side with the mistress instead to support you, her friend. Answer. Believe me, I have questioned and speculated. I think her marriage started in a similar fashion to the mistress. Sometimes you're friends for so long, 35 years in my case, because you've known them your entire life, you don't see how different you are as people. Update. I had a showdown with my former best friend. I had a showdown with my former best friend via text, and I confronted her about her non-existent support when I went to her with my woes. I told her that she concentrated on the wrong issue. She should have been my shoulder to cry in. She should have shown up with wine, ice cream, and a shovel. But instead, she called me a bigger douche than my husband. She tried to gaslight me, and I realized that she's always been a good gaslighter, so I interrupted her before she made me out to be the villain. I asked her bluntly, was her husband's name married when you started sleeping together? You told us that he was married before, we all knew that, but we all were under the impression that he was married and divorced before you two met. But was he still married? Is that why you related to the mistress and felt sympathy for her? Because you were her? She didn't answer me until next day to call me a bitter and jealous bitch. Wow, this was the last one-on-one interaction with her, I have decided. She's been my friend since preschool, but now we need to go our separate ways, not only to save us from future hurt, but also to save our memories together from hurt. I talked to my husband too, and asked him not to make the separation difficult and bitter, that it ruins all the happiness we felt being together because we cannot think back on 1/3 of our lives with resentment. I asked him to take my dad's offer. He offered to help him find a lease on an apartment and pay 1-2 years rent if he moved out without giving me problems. When I got home, he and his clothes were gone. He left an apology letter saying that he will always love me and never meant to hurt me. So I have finally been able to cry my eyes out, and it felt so good. I have been crying since I got home. I lost 2 of my closest people, but this is what happens when we hit hardships. We see people's true faces. Relevant comments. Oop on being told she's kind. It is not out of kind-heartedness. I can't just kick the man out without a fight or a bribe. If I had started eviction proceedings, I would need at least 6 months to do so, and I didn't want him in my life for this long. So I am bribing him. Housing is very scarce and primary lease is almost impossible. My dad has connections with landlords, so he agreed to move out. He is living with his parents now until he gets his contract. I'm happy it didn't get more complicated. This was what my lawyer advised me to do because taking the eviction route would have made it drag for months. How do you like these stories? Write your opinion in the comments. Let's get 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Love you.